Yo, it's Coach Ed. Got the insights, no boast. From the rookies in the youth leagues to the seasoned pros. Ladies balling, fellas fighting all around the globe. Breaking it down dynamic. You know, tune in, listen up. Don't want to miss the flow. It's Coach Ed's Read and Attack the Sports Show. From the courts to the field, he's got the stats. Dropping knowledge is where the real fans at. So stand up, get ready for the play. Wave your arms in the air, let's hear you say, Coach Ed, our mentor on the mic. Breaking down the game, every highlight. Analyzing plays, court the turf the like. Youth leagues, college dreams, pro spotlight. Tackling the flats, defense or attack. He's got the vision, shows you where it's at. We grab the scoop, no stone left unturned. In Coach Ed's realm, the knowledge earned.
What's going on, everyone? It's me, it's Coach Ed, and I'm back. Yes, I'm back bringing you the Coach Ed Gladney's Read and Attack Sports Show. So I'm really excited. Really appreciate everyone who's been supporting me as I've gone through my journey, slowly coming back and ready to get back at the grind, talk to you about sports, giving you my perspective on everything that's going on in the sports world. And you know what? We're going to interact and we're going to, handle our business in a sense. We're going to, talk out everything in the sports world. So hope you guys will enjoy today's show. Just sit back and let's get at it. So one of the things I wanted to talk about to start is, the Major League Baseball. I'm a Yankees fan, so, I got to start out, a little bit with the baseball and talk about the Yanks and what's going on. And to be honest with you, I've been surprised. Talking to someone yesterday and, in my head, I thought the Yankees were, I'm not going to say they're having a great season, but I didn't think they were playing as well as I thought they were right now. I thought they were in middle of the AL division. And he told me, hey, no, Coach, the Yankees actually have the best record in the American League. And that's what was surprising to me. Taking a look right now, currently they're standing at 14-8, 2 games up on Toronto and Boston. Overall, they're 1 game up over Detroit and Texas for the overall number 1 spot in the American League. So that right there as a Yankees fan just caught me. So still a long season, a lot going on. They're dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of things. So, but I think, hopefully they'll continue and they'll still be one of the top teams in the AL. Over in the National League, right there, Murderer's Row right now is in the National League West, man. San Diego's leading all the baseball with a 16-6 record. They're half a game up on the Dodgers, who are 16-7. So those two are going to be battling it out all year. And you also have San Francisco and Arizona, who are all right there. They're within 3 games of San Diego. So right now, the AL West right now to me is what is known as the Murderer's Row in terms of baseball. So now I'm not to take anything away from the Central or the East. The Mets right there in the East, they're 15-7. So they're literally about a game back of San Diego. So they're right there. Philadelphia is about 2 games behind them. So, it's going to be an interesting run in the baseball world, as we go along. So I'm really excited about it overall. I'm not too excited about the Yankees. I mean, I want them to do better, but, hopefully they'll be able to pick it up and turn it up a notch. I mean, it's going to be a tough battle. In that AL East, Toronto, Boston, Baltimore, even Tampa Bay. I mean, Tampa Bay just gave them a go in their current their series they just completed with them. So it's going to be a tough season. But again, the Yankees are showing me something. Over the last 10, they're 7-3. So right there, that's what you kind of want. Be about 70 to 80% in terms of their standings overall. Now, I did take a look at the power rankings, and this is according to CBSSports.com. The Yankees actually are 5. Yeah, they're number 5. It starts with San Diego at 1, the Dodgers at 2, the Mets at 3, Chicago at 4, Yankees at 5, Philadelphia 6, kind of like my second team. The Giants are at 7, the Tigers are at 8, the Texas Rangers are at 9, and the Arizona Diamondbacks are at 10. So that's the top 10. So as you see, it's a tough go right now. Taking a look at the Yankees in the top 10 jumped the most. They jumped 5 spots from 10 to 5, and the Dodgers jumped 4 spots. They went from 6 to 2. So you get on that run, you climb, and it can easily happen where, you know what, it can go the other way. So it's definitely going to be an interesting baseball season. So thanks a lot, Daniel Berry. I really appreciate you. Happy Monday to you too, to you and yours. So hope you guys hope you're having a great day. So thanks for the support, man. Also, everyone, do me a favor. Make sure you like this episode. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe and hit the notifications so you know when I start posting new content. Share on all social media platforms, get me out into the algorithm and get me started back up and continue to grow. And always comment on any shows that I do, whether it's on YouTube, if it's on Facebook and Instagram. Make sure you leave me a note there. Also, make sure you go subscribe to the Aboriginal Sports Network and the Hardcore Sports Network, because I am a part of both of those networks, and they do some great work, have some great content creators there. So description will always be in the informational and the links will always be in the description. So make sure you go in, tap in, follow them on YouTube, on Twitter. If their Facebook information is there, make sure you hit the Facebook too. So definitely want to keep growing the channel and get out there. So next we're going to move over to the NBA. Got a little something here. Got playoffs time right now with the NBA. So definitely want to add something right now. We definitely want to talk about the NBA and what's going on in the NBA. So right now with the playoffs, there's a lot going on. Right now, currently, my Knicks are playing, and they're actually down 8 points, to the Detroit Pistons, but it's in the first quarter. So definitely going to be a tough one for the Knicks. It has always been. The first game, was definitely a tough one. They had a 21 run that helped them in the fourth quarter to close out the Detroit Pistons. So definitely was an interesting game for the Knicks. So, but looking at all the games, I mean, I found them to be exciting, definitely exciting. But the games themselves, some of them were, what's the word I'm looking for? Some of them were what you expected, and others were, wow, totally surprising. So, I mean, you had Indiana beating Milwaukee 117-98 on Saturday. That was a game. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he tried to, carry Milwaukee, but wasn't enough against Indiana. I mean, they definitely have scores and they can, push the envelope on you. The game of the night was Denver and the LA Clippers. That went to overtime where Denver ended up winning by 2 points. It was a tough one going back and forth. You had New York beating Detroit 123-112. Minnesota went to LA and took care of business in LA against the Lakers. I mean, 117-95, and it wasn't even that close. So that game was just, wow, really surprising. The next set of games, you had Oklahoma City totally dismantle Memphis. They beat them by 51 points, 131-80. Boston over Orlando, 103-86. Cleveland over Miami, 121-100. And Golden State went to Houston and beat Houston 95-85. But again, like I said, these games were pretty, standard for the most part, right where I thought they would be. The one that really surprised me, though, I'm going to be honest, was Minnesota. I was expecting a closer game. I did not expect them to really dominate the Lakers the way they did. So, that's sending a big message, hey, they're stepping their game up and they're bringing it to you come playoff time. So, LA is going to have to step up, and it can't just be about Luka and LeBron. I mean, you're going to need other guys with the Lakers to step up. Austin Reeves, man, he's definitely got to produce, man. If he's, touted as the number 3 scorer, then he needs to step up. He needs to produce and be efficient and effective. Defensively, they got to step their game up. But I think the one thing that hurts them, the Lakers, is their limitations down low in the box. They really don't have a lot of, as they say, they don't have a lot of height. They don't have a lot of players who can control within the box. Minnesota has Gobert and Julius Randle right there alone. Those two can really command and get the rebounds and fight down low. They can fight in the paint and battle it out against LA. So, like I said, the Lakers definitely have to step it up and be more productive and efficient in getting rebounds and controlling the paint. You can't just expect Luka and LeBron to do everything. You're going to need to get major contributions from the other players with the Lakers. So, but again, like I said, it's first. These were the first games. Things are going to change. How do the coaches adjust? That's one of the biggest things. The coaches are going to be adjusting, to what they saw or what they went up against in the first game. Right now, looking at the Knicks, Detroit is being a lot more physical and they're getting out and running and they're crashing the boards against the Knicks. So they're up by 11 points right now in the second quarter. So the Knicks, Tibbs has to make some serious adjustments. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem, for the Knicks in this whole series. So definitely a tough one there for New York. So, but kind of what I was expecting. They got to step up. I expected the Detroit to step it up. And this is where New York has to take it to another level themselves. You have to know, look, man, it's going to be tough. They're going to come. They're going to bring it. They're stepping it up. You got to step your game up now. Detroit is young. They're hungry. Cade Cunningham is definitely an ascending superstar. And you got to get out there and you got to really fight and play with a certain level of physicality, or you got to match their level of physicality. So that's one of the things I'll definitely be watching as this series continues. And I'm expecting a lot more, especially from Karl Anthony Towns. Definitely expecting him to dominate down low. Tibbs, be smart, match him up with Mitchell Robinson. That lineup seemed to be very efficient. And they were able to do things. And you're not putting too much on Towns in terms of dominating the middle alone, because you have one of the elite rebounders in Mitchell Robinson, and he's also a rim protector. So that changes the whole dynamics of their defense. It affects their offense to a certain extent because you're taking a possible scorer off, but you're allowing Mitchell Robinson to work the pick and roll and get cleanup putback. So, and that's some of the things that he's good at. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more from the Knicks going forward. Boston, I kind of expected what they were going to do with Orlando. There was for a moment in the first half, Orlando went to halftime with the lead against Boston, but Boston stepped up and they showed why they're the league champions. They're the defending champions, and Orlando's definitely in for a fight. They definitely have to step up and they have to pick it up. I mean, now they do have some talent, but on the same token, they're rather young. I mean that's one of the things I know. They're still young and they're still developing. They're still ascending. So maybe they're a year away. But right now going against the Chaps, it's going to be a tough fight, and especially when they just came off of playing in the play-in. So that also is something that I attribute to what happened. I mean they wore down, and then Boston was able to, put the vice clamps on them. Cleveland, it's why they're one of the top teams in the league, man. What they did against Miami, was definitely um, something that I expected, to be honest with you. Miami started out, battling, but Cleveland, they have way too much talent, and they were able to, take control. They really don't have anyone who can slow down Donovan Mitchell. Mitchell can, pretty much control the game and the narrative. Anyway, whether it's scoring, helping get other guys going. You have Garland, who also does the same thing. So and they're tough, especially with those two big bodies down low. So and it's an interesting, not interesting. It's kind of what I'm expecting. I just want to know, is it going to go 4 or 5 games? To be honest with you, because I don't think Miami will be able to keep up with them. Oklahoma City, if they're not sweeping, I think there's something wrong. For them to win the way they did, yeah, that sends a strong message. That also sends a strong message to the rest of the teams. Last year they were number one, and you saw what happened. And I think that hunger really got to them, and they have it. They have the defense. They have the offensive skills. SGA, it's really hard to defend him. And especially when you get in the pick and roll. Hartenstein, with his defense, but his offensive IQ and the way he sees the game, really helps them out and expands their game. So, that's, going to continue. For me, it's going to continue to be, is it going to be 4 games or is it going to be 5 games? And personally speaking, I think it's going to be a 4 games series. So, maybe they do get one, but right now you got to show me that you're able to play with them. Right now they weren't able to. So the Denver and the Clippers series, I think that's going to full 7 games. That really showed me something, especially because they went to overtime. But even and with overtime, playing in overtime, it just showed Denver just showed who they are. But LA was right there with them. It's not like they were totally dominating the Clippers. The Clippers were right there. Harden, Kawhi Leonard, Powell, they all were out there, playing their game and doing exactly what they needed to do. So it was a very great game. It was a great game. So I'm just going to leave it there. Golden State, you have the veterans going up against a young squad in Houston, and Houston, still they're still developing. They have a lot of talent there, but who is that go-to player to close out the games, or to get those tough buckets? With Golden State, who it's going to be. It's going to be. It's going to be Steph Curry. It's going to be Curry. You also have playoff Jimmy. Jimmy's game always steps up to another level. And they and their supporting cast all knows their role, and they all fit in perfectly with what they're trying to do with that team. So again, the playoffs are definitely going to be interesting, and I'm going to continue to watch it with great intent as we go along. So right now I'm looking at the Knicks. It's a lot of bumping going on out there, but that's playoff basketball. Like I said, the Knicks definitely have to step it up. And right now they're down by 9 points in the second quarter. So Detroit's really hungry, and they're playing it and they're taking it to them. So and this is going to be a tough series. I really do. Is it going to go 7 games? Is it going to go 6 games? New York cannot let Detroit really get this game, because then you got to go to Detroit and try to get a game there, and that's always going to be the tough one. So, but that's going to be it right now for the NBA. Just wanted to touch on that, especially with the playoffs going on right now. So I'm going to move on to one of the things that I really do love, in a sense, in terms of sports, and it's college athletics. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is the transfer portal. There's so many things going on with the transfer portals. I just read an article that, in terms of, that covers all the transfers that cover all 3 levels, whether it's the FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III. They said there's 10,000 kids in the transfer portal. Now, that's all sports, but 10,000 kids are in the transfer portal looking to move on to another school. And I get it. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks for being here. Make sure you guys go to subscribe to Nikki Steves. He's part of the Hardcore Sports Network. Does some great job talking basketball, talking football. A great dude. So definitely go check him out, and subscribe to him and like his videos. So, and again, Nikki, thanks for tapping in. You always do some great work, and I appreciate you being here. So, but getting back to the transfer portal, while I do agree that kids should have the opportunity to move on if they don't feel the situation is right where they are, or if a coach transfers out, or not transfers out, a coach leaves and goes on to another school, or whatever, they get fired or they go to the pros, the kids should also be able to transfer, because a lot of times these kids go to these schools because of said coach, and that's an important thing there. So, these kids should have the ability, but the ones that I have an issue with are the ones who, every year they're transferring out, kids going to 4 different schools. Look, you need to do some serious research on your schools, and I know sometimes it's hard for kids in high school, you're 15, 16, 17 years old, having this major university, want to give you a college scholarship, and you have all the benefits, and now you have the NIL initiative along with it. So, it's so much pressure on them, but, there needs to be a better venting system in place to help the kids, look at the universities and make sure that it's the school they want to go to, because the jumping around, and the other thing that with the transfer portal that I have a problem with is the kids that want to leave because they don't want to compete. That's sports. You're out there playing on the court. That's competition. You're out there competing. So you got to go and compete for your position, your playing time. And if somebody is ahead of you, what do I got to do, coach, to get on the field? Whether it's studying film, whether it's getting in the weight room and getting stronger, whatever it is, you need to be able to compete as far as athletes out there, and not run away from the competition. You need to be out there competing. So just looking at the Knicks game, right now they're down by 11 points. So Knicks are in that battle, like I said. So they're going to need to really step it up. So we'll see. I'll be monitoring as we go along. So, but getting back to the transfer portal, these kids that want to leave because they don't want to compete, well, why are you playing? I mean, you're going out there to compete. If you think you're going to get to the pros, not competing at the high school level, what do you think is going to happen at the pro level? It's going to be pretty much the same thing. You need to step your game up. You need to be out there and compete, and that's some of the problems. Some of it starts at the lower levels with the different programs, basketball, AAU, it's more of a all-star highlight show. as opposed to some serious coaching and adjustments and pushing and motivating these kids to go out there and compete at their best. One of the greatest NBA players, he attributed his success is to having failure at an early age, which drove him to work hard to be a better player. And that's the other thing. You can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not working hard, developing your talent, that's why sometimes you lose your starting position. You think you're supposed to have it because you're a better athlete than the player who's starting over you. But if that player put in the work and they secured the trust of the coaches, that's more of the reason why you're not going to be out there competing until you show. Now, if you show that you're working hard, you're committed to your craft, as well as have the athleticism, there's no reason why you can't start. And you shouldn't run to the transfer portal just because you're not starting. You need to find out why you're not in there in the game, and you need to work to get out there. And I think if kids really knew and understood that, starting at the younger ages, I think you would see a decrease in kids transferring. There are going to be some who want the money, and there's nothing you can say or do about that. If it's about the money, that's business. If the school is not willing to give the kid the money, then I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. But the transfer portal, right now is going crazy for whatever reason. When I sit there and I look at that 10,000 kids, that's a lot. That's a lot. To seeing kids like that at all levels, whether it's Division III all the way up, to see that many kids, it just really tears at the fabric of competitive sports and what athletics really are about. So hopefully we as a community, sports community, can grab a hold of that. The NCAA, I know, they're not the greatest, but there needs to be some type of regulation put into place. And I've heard every little thing from a salary cap to, players can get XYZ amount no matter whatever it is. I don't have the answer for that, but definitely it needs to be something done to help fine tune that because it's going crazy, man. It's really, really going crazy seeing all these kids out there, just running to the transfer portal because they don't like the current situation that you're in. In life, you're going to find a job that you may not like, after some time. But what are you going to do? Now, yes, you can go find another one, but you're going to keep jumping from job to job to job. Sometimes you just got to settle in. You got to work hard, and you never know. It may open up the door to success and change your whole perspective, about that injury. And that's the same thing with sports. That's what one thing that I love about sports is the parallel that it has when you compare it to the real world. Sports can get kids ready for the real world, and they can go real world. Sorry about that, and they can be successful out there. But you know what? You got to put in that work, man. And hopefully there's a way that we can eventually find a way of adjusting that and making it a better system. So that's pretty much it in terms of the transfer portal. The next thing I want to talk about is I saw something that was talking about the NFL's most talented all time. And I saw it on Twitter. And I wanted to bring it up, and I just want to talk about it. When we sit here and we take a look at this, hold on, let me turn that banner off for you so we can get the full picture. When we look about this, the most talented, and they said this is according to SOC Football. They rated who they felt was the best all time. Number 1, Deion Sanders. Number 2, Randy Moss. Number 3, Lawrence Taylor. Calvin Johnson. Ed Reed. Barry Sanders. Charles Woodson. Bo Jackson. Troy Polamalu. Michael Vick. I had a discussion with a couple of guys, and they even said, they could go Bo Jackson or Michael Vick as number one. And I thought about it. I could see Bo Jackson. You can make the argument. Deion Sanders, I believe, was at number two. One of the, this is during our discussion though. But the point was Michael Vick was rated higher. Bo Jackson was rated higher, which adjusted the board. The one who ended up at 10 was Palomalo, I believe, and both of them. Lawrence Taylor, I believe, was at 5 or 6 on one or both of theirs. Randy Moss was number 3. No, it was Calvin Johnson, then Randy Moss, Barry Sanders, LT, Ed Reed, Woodson, and then Palomalo. Now, the point I'm getting at is, Bo Jackson, if you never saw him play, you wouldn't understand how talented he was. He dominated at 2 sports, man. I mean, and 2 professional sports, and Major League Baseball and the NFL. That right there spoke volumes. Deion Sanders played played professional baseball along with the NFL. Yes, he did, but he wasn't an elite baseball player. Bo Jackson was an elite baseball player, and it really spoke volumes on who he was as an athlete. I mean, he was one of those dominant athletes out there. And I can definitely agree that, if he was at number one, don't have a problem with that. Deion Sanders, you didn't see him. People talk about his cornerback play. And, it was definitely one of, if not the best in all of football. But there were times they put him on offense, which is why I understand why he relates to Travis Hunter. He played some offense. They had some packages for him where he can go out there and make plays offensively. And the other thing is, he was so dynamic in special teams. There were so many times he took punts back to the house. So that's why I understand with him being up there, some people may not like, his arrogance, or as they say, or confidence, whichever way you want to spew it, and his brashness. But you cannot deny the talent over there. Like I said, Bo Jackson, had speed, power, good vision when he was out there on the football field. And baseball, he could cover the outfield, but he can also take the ball out of the park. If you threw him a little hanger out there, he can knock it out of the ballpark. But again, Randy Moss, I mean, one of the most dynamic wide receivers ever. Literally, you could just throw the ball up and let him go run and catch it and run under it. So, he was just that dynamic. Lawrence Taylor changed the way the game is played, especially from an edge outside linebacker. He was always classified as an outside linebacker. Some people don't realize, they always see him rushing the passer, but there were times he would drop into coverage. I mean, remember one game against Detroit on Thanksgiving. He ran back a 99-yard interception for a touchdown. I mean, there were so many times he picked the ball off and returned it for a touchdown, whether in the playoffs or during the regular season. But, he changed the way teams play defense and also on offense. You always had to come out and look to see where number 56 was. With that, it like I said, it changed the dynamics of the way that you played defensive football, and you rushed the passer out there. So moving on to Calvin Johnson. I mean, such a big body receiver, man. Now, he may not have been as fast as Randy Moss, but he had good speed. He had very good speed, could run very precise patterns, especially for a man that big. He had a great catch radius, but he also used his hands very well to catch the football. He wasn't always letting the ball fall into his body. He would use his hands to catch it. So phenomenal wide receiver. Always a threat to take it to the house. But if you needed a first down or you needed a touchdown in a short situation, you could throw it up and he could definitely go get it. And, if you move on to Ed Reed, I mean, as a safety, could play sideline to sideline cover. He could play whether in zone or in man. He could even cover, in the slot on occasion. You didn't do that because you would take away his playmaking ability on the back end and his ability to read the ball and go after the ball, get the ball, and create a turnover. Phenomenal and an explosive hitter. He would come down and you see the ball carrier, and he would lay into them and really let them know that you're not just going to run over him. So very dynamic safety. Barry Sanders, man. I mean, he retired too soon. I think if he stayed, honestly, and just went after the title, he would have not Emmitt Smith. He would have surpassed that title and pushed it even further. Now, the thing about Barry Sanders, which a lot of fans today don't realize, to start of his career, and I would say maybe half of his career, he had no offensive line, and he was still producing. The way this man could run with the football, stop, change direction, or you would have a defender right there and he would force that defender to miss. And then his speed, wow, he's really dynamic. Whenever that ball got into his hand, you could sense the defense was afraid. They were so afraid that he was going to take it all the way each and every time that he touched that football. The other thing about Sanders that most people don't really know him or don't understand. Whenever he scored a touchdown, he always acted like, "Hey, I've done it before." He didn't have all the celebration or whatever. He would go to the official, give him the football, go back to the sideline, high five his teammates on the sideline. That's something that is impressive, especially in a day and age where everybody is me, look at me, doing the fancy handshakes, the dances, jumping up all over the place. No, Barry Sanders is very simple, took the football, gave it to the referee because he knew he's been there and he's expecting to go back again. And you don't see that nowadays. So that's something else that, was very impressive about him. Charles Woodson, dynamic player in terms of he could cover. He also had some offensive playmaking ability, but he was more dynamic as a defender. Whether he was starting out at cornerback or eventually becoming a safety, he definitely knew how to play the position extremely well. And that's why him being on this list is definitely one I can understand. Troy Polamalu, another dynamic safety, come down, blitz off the edge, moved around, but then dropped back into coverage. Always played his position very well. Could read the patterns and always could make a play or push the limits of creating dynamic turnovers. So he's one that definitely respect. And Michael Vick as a quarterback. People talk about the athletic quarterback. If Michael Vick was playing right now, you would see how dynamic he was. There's time he could drop back, sit back there, looking. The next thing you know, he's taking off running. And he's taking off running for a 70-yard touchdown, a 50-yard touchdown, because it was just so hard for the defense to catch him. His speed was unparalleled, especially at the quarterback position during his time. So, now this list, again, like I said, it was very interesting. It wasn't my list, but it was something that I wanted to talk about, talk to a couple of friends. And you know what? I was hoping to get some interaction and, get some comments from those of you in the comment section, what you thought, who do you feel should have been on the list? if you put someone on, who would you take off? So, but you can also leave a comment, and because I'll follow up later, and I'll look and we'll still continue to engage it. Who do you think, should be on this list if they're not on this list? How would you adjust this, or do you think this list is perfect right with the way it is? What do you think? So, but again, one last thing, in my how I would rank it, yeah, I would do Bo Jackson number one. It's probably going to be Deion Sanders number two. Barry Sanders for me would probably be number three. Calvin Johnson four. Michael Vick five. LT six. Woodson. Randy Moss seven. Woodson, and then Palomalo. And I know it's going to cause some controversy. Why would you put Randy Moss so far down? But I also looked at I'm sorry, I forgot Ed Reed. I would put Ed Reed over Woodson and right behind Randy Moss. But I also look at who's in front of him. So yeah, you could say, well, why is such and such so low? But look who's in front of him. Who are you taking down? Who are you dropping down? So, but again, that's how I look at it. That's how I feel about it. So, and again, I'd like to, hear what you guys are thinking, in terms of this. So, but again, I found it great. I'm going to be looking for more of those, and to talk about those as we go along. So, but again, most talented, is great. I'm going to look to see if I can find things on linemen, in different positions, as we go along and we continue with more episodes. So, but right now, I just want to take a little, I don't want to say a break, but I want to show a little appreciation for all those who support me, even when I was down and I wasn't able to be here on a regular basis. Those that supported me continue. The Jersey Bearcats, the arena football team, they always have been there. My man Jermaine has always been there. No matter what, saying to me, look, we can always work together. So I appreciate the Bearcats for their support. The League of All Leagues, Minor League Semi-Pro Football League. I know several of the teams. I know the CEO very well. I thank them for always supporting me and being here. The Silverbacks, which is one of the teams in there. My brother, my boy, he's the head coach over there. So always being there to support me. Go Travels, one of the best travel agencies out there. They definitely will help you. You can always reach out to my man NYG, Unpopular Opinion Sports. If you got travel arrangements and there's things you want to do, he definitely will take care of you. Just let him know that Coach Ed sent you there. And then Stitched by a Trini does some great work in handcrafted work. So that's the thing with Stitched by a Trini. So what's up, Raph? Thanks for tapping in, man. I really appreciate you. Another great content creator, y'all. Just make sure you go look up El Capitan Rafael El Fucho. Definitely does some great work. Does it also in multiple. He's a multilingual person, so he does content in Spanish as well as English. So covers the Raiders as one of his teams as well as soccer. So great content creator. So, but again, like finishing up with my those who support me, Stitch by Trini, like I said, she does some great work in terms of crochet work, but she can do, she's amazing. She can make a full outfit for you, shoe, like sandals, slippers, hats, bags. She's very creative. You can talk to her. Swimwear. She's make swim outfits for the ladies. I've seen some stuff and I'm like, that looks nice. Mm-hmm. So, but definitely, again, to all my supporters, and then you guys, thank you. Those of you who, reach out to me via Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. If you have my number and you text me or call me, thank you for always supporting me. You know, it really means a lot to me, more than you guys will ever know. So, but with that, I want to move on to something that's coming up very soon, and it'll be here on Thursday. And we're talking about the NFL draft. Now, you know, if you're a fan of a particular NFL team, you know what your team, needs are and what you're looking for. And right now, it's a lot going on. You know, who's going where? You know, is this player worthy of this? You know, positioning, so on and so forth. You know, for me, I've been a strong supporter of Shador Sanders. I think he's the best quarterback in this draft. And to be honest with you, I know others have said it's not a great quarterback draft. You know, these quarterbacks are mid-range all the way down to probably not being in a first-round draft pick. You know, and that's everyone's opinion. My opinion of watching Shador Sanders and breaking him down, he's on the fringe of possibly, if he's in the right system, gets the right coaching, and has the right talent around him, he can develop into one of the all-time greats. And yes, I'm putting that out there. That's a big statement. But yes, I believe in this kid. You know, people question his arm strength and, there's no zip on his pass. Well, I always make the argument. Joe Montana, if you look at his scout report coming out of Notre Dame, very similar to what is being said about Shador Sanders. Now, Montana went in the third round, but look at what he became. Look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a sixth-round draft pick. He didn't have the looks, but when his opportunity came, what did he do? Became one of the best quarterbacks of all time, if not to most people, they say he's the greatest. You know, and we can always debate that. But the point I'm making is you can sit here and you can break down every little thing about every quarterback. It doesn't matter. That's the thing about the draft, because everyone looks for reasons to elevate said player or to tear said player down, But people talk about his arm strength and, he's not very overly athletic. I don't need him to be. He knows how to manipulate the pocket. He knows how to avoid the rush. He knows how to get the ball downfield, let his receivers catch the ball. See, people talk about zip on his pass, but you don't talk about this kid puts the ball in the receiver's hands and allows them to continue making a play. There's too many times where people will say, the receiver had to stop and adjust and make the play on the football because the ball was inaccurate. Well, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks out there. People will say, a lot of his completions were screens and, throwing it out to the flat. Well, that's because they're in their offense. They didn't have a running game. You give him a running game, it's going to change his dynamics, because then you're going to see his play action step up. His ability to fake out the defense just with play action. And it's going to open up windows for the receivers also. So just because he, throws it to the flat does not mean that, that's the only way that he can gain his yardage. No, that's saying that, they didn't have a sound running game. They didn't have a sound running game, and he had to manipulate the pocket a lot. And yes, he got sacked a lot because he didn't have a good offensive line. Think about that. He didn't have a good offensive line. I remember when Derek Carr came out of college into the NFL and went to Houston and was getting smacked around. And it changed his whole career because he constantly got hit, that he became a shell shock, and he was never the same player that he was when he was first coming out. These are some of the things that, people want to attack these players and say this or that, but you're not looking at the full scope of the players. Now, does Sanders need some more work? Yes. Every young player coming in, they need to work. But I'm going to tell you right now, this kid also has a great support system. He has so many people who have played in the league who believe in him, including one of the all-time greats, Tom Brady. He's his mentor. He's talked to him. He's talked with him. He's worked with him. But people want to talk about, oh, his athletic ability. I'll say this. Didn't the Jets draft one quarterback who had such an elite arm, but he didn't turn out because of this? That's what Sanders says. Sanders has two things that I think that helps him to become successful. He has the intellect, but he also has the heart. And not everyone has that. So because he can't throw 80 yards, he's not a good quarterback. But he can make every other pass that is necessary. He can give you a deep corner. He can get you the post. He can get you the outcut, a hitch, a comeback. He can get the crossers. He can do everything that needs to be done. He puts the ball in a position for the receiver to catch the ball and continue to make a play moving downfield. This is why, to me, it just baffles me when people want to tear him down and make it seem like he's not that great of a quarterback. Yes, he is. And he's only going to continue to get better. And then when you see what you have out there, people are going to turn around and say, oh, well, you know what? I just needed to see it. Okay. Then when you make comments like that, you need to see that out of every player coming through the draft. Every player, not just the quarterback, every player. Because you need to see them. And we all do it. Even I have done it, as a fan. I see this player coming into the pros, and okay, he's going to be blah blah blah, but in the end you need to see it. You need to see it from said player that they're going to be able to produce in the NFL. So and that's some of the things that sometimes we need to temper it down. Now, in terms of the draft, Cam Ward definitely is going to be a quarterback with the right system. He's going to show you some things. I mean, this kid has had a phenomenal, he's had a journey that is unconventional, in Connect World, before he went to Washington State, before he ended up in Miami. That is where he ended up elevating his game. Now some people will say, oh, he transferred 3 times. The last time he was a graduate student, and he was smart. He could have came out last year, but he said, no, let me go back one last year, refine my game, and elevate myself. And also playing at Miami helped his game because you were playing on a bigger stage than at Washington State. So, he's definitely worthy of it. Again, people talk about Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, and they use the word generational, that they're just that talented. Hunter, yes, I really see his ability as a receiver. He's dynamic. He really is. The way he can make a play and the way he gets after the football. And then on the defensive end, the way he's able to read the defense and make a play on the football when necessary. Now, he's not a explosive tackler, and I'm not expecting him to be, but I do look at him to be the type of cornerback that is always in phase, is smart, and makes a play on the football, and is also the type of player that will take it to the house if you let him from the defensive side. So Abdul Carter has some great talent, has some great skills. As an off-ball linebacker, he's done some good things at Penn State, and then this past year coming off the edge. And I understand why Penn State did that. They wanted to push him up there to show his capabilities. My concern with Carter, and I've spoken about it, and some people think that I'm saying that because I don't like him. I do like Carter. Don't get me wrong. He's a good talent, but my concern right now is he's been dealing with 2 injuries, a shoulder and a foot. So and people always talk about, oh, well, players with the injuries and the best ability is availability, but we look at Carter and we don't speak about it. Now, just like I said, you push up players and you tear down players in terms of the evaluation. Same thing here. Same thing here. Now, Carter, there's some things that he needs to work on, holding the edge, and teams are going to run at him because, he's not overly physical. So, that's some of the things that he's going to need to show that he's able to do. And again, if he gets in the right system and he gets developed properly, then you can see things differently. So, and again, like I said, for me, I just have concerns about dealing with 2 injuries, though. That's the thing. It's 2 injuries. Number one, the shoulder. If you're going to come off the edge, you're going to be using that shoulder. You're going to be fighting with offensive linemen. Your hand movement that comes from your shoulder play, getting extension off of the offensive lineman off of you. So those are some things that, I definitely have some concerns dealing with him. Now, you know what? Maybe after his first year, he shows how dynamic. And again, if he gets in the right system, it's going to allow him to take off, and you can see his full potential. And he can be what everyone is hoping that he is. Whether he's LT to Micah Parsons, he can make a name for himself as Abdul Carter, and that's the thing. So. Just looking at the game right now. Sorry, Knicks are down by 4, but yes, again, he makes a name for himself as Abdul Carter, as an athlete in the NFL. So, and that's what I'm hoping that he eventually does, especially if he gets in the right system. Now we could sit down and we could look at, so many different players, but you know what, the draft is coming up on Thursday. Hopefully your team gets the player that you're looking for, and these players with the whole draft spectrum, and they help your team in the long run. I'm, as a Giants fan, I'm looking, for certain positions to be addressed, especially always the trenches. That's something about me that anyone knows that I love the trenches, and I, look for, my team to always address that area. So, but we'll talk more next week on, the draft, after everything is completed. Hopefully, you guys will be here and we'll be able to talk more about that. So, again, I want to thank everyone who's, tapped in today. Raph, Nikki Stees, Daniel Berry, thank you everyone for, tapping in and being here and showing support. I really appreciate you guys. Everyone, make sure, like I said, you go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and hit the like button, and always, leave me a comment, and let me know what's going on. So, but that's going to be it for today's episode. Again, thanks to everybody. It's going to be a great ride coming back. Really appreciate you. So with that being said, it's Coach Ed, and I'm out. Peace.
Yo, it's Coach Ed. Got the insights, no boats. From the rookies in the youth leagues to the seasoned pros. Ladies balling, fellas fighting all around the globe. Breaking it down dynamic. Tune in, listen up. Don't want to miss the flow. It's Coach Ed's Read and Attack, the sports show. From the courts to the field, he's got the stats. Dropping knowledge is where the real fans at. So stand up, get ready for the play. Wave your arms in the air, let's hear you say. Coach Ed, our mentor on the mic. Breaking down the game, every highlight. Analyzing plays, court the turfs alike. Youth leagues, college dreams, pro spotlight. Tackling the flats, defense or attack. He's got the vision, shows you where it's at. We grab the scoop, no stone left unturned. In Coach Ed's realm, the knowledge earned.